Tech by Tips.
Hello and welcome to another Tech by Tips video. I want to thank James Smith for a donation to the channel. Thank you very much. It's highly appreciated and you're a rock star. And now we're gonna go with the request for today's video. This request comes from Nefarious, and this is a donor to the channel. And it says, Tech by Tips. It took me an hour because it didn't like my card, but didn't tell me it didn't like my card. Eventually I was able to donate with another card. Would definitely appreciate a guide on installing Subsonic on Synology with Docker. No Portainer though. Will definitely be subscribing and checking out your other videos. He didn't specify which Subsonic he was talking about, because when I was looking at it, I found several applications named Subsonic. So I'm hoping I understood what the right one was. I would say when you're requesting an app, if you can, please provide me a link to their GitHub or to their website so that I know for sure that I have the right app. But let's go with what I think this person was asking. I think he was talking about this application, Subsonic, which you can find in subsonic.org, which is a personal media streamer. This application has been through some changes. I tried to look for their GitHub repository, but I couldn't find a reference to their GitHub anywhere, honestly. So I don't even know if that is public. And it seemed like this application was fully open source before, but now they're going the path of trying to charge you for things. But so far, a lot of the functionality is still available for free. And if you go here, they have a demo where you can go and you can see the application in action. So this is a demo. You can find it at demo.subsonic.org. And this is basically something similar to like a Plex, but specifically for like music and podcasts and stuff like that. So on their website, they have some sample stuff. So for example, you can click here and it plays whatever they have there. So, straight up, you have your home with your music here where you can filter stuff. You have a way to see what is being played. You have your index, stars, playlist, and podcasts. So podcasts and music mainly is what you can do with this. So let's go ahead and set this application up. Since I didn't find an official repository, I'm going with public repositories that seem to be straightforward. I tried another one, but this is the one that I found to be the most easier to get running, especially in a Synology NAS. So I'm going to be using the repository Danisla/Subsonic from Docker Hub. Pretty straightforward. They have the latest version here, and you can pick other versions too. And it gives you instructions here on how to set it up. Basically, it says that we need to pass a folder for the configuration and a folder for our music. And if you're going to use podcasts, also you have to pass that. So I'm going to be making a little bit of changes to that, and we're going to get it running. So let's get to that. The first thing that we need to do is I am going to be setting this up in the Synology NAS as a Docker container. So I am going to create the folders that I need for this application. So I'm going to go into my containers, and in here I'm going to create a folder for Subsonic. And let me copy this, and I'm going to put inside here a few other folders. I'm going to put one that is config, so that's where we're going to have our configuration. And that's basically it when it comes to this directory here. And the projects, I'm going to create a new project for Subsonic, and that's where our Docker configuration file is going to reside. And that's what we need here in the Docker section. And then remember, in the HTTPC, you would have your media, and in here you would have your music here and your podcasts that you can then mount into the application. So make sure you have those folders there too. So we have all the folder structure that we need. Now we should be able to then come into the projects here and create a new project for Subsonic. And then in here we're going to pick the path of that project that we created. So we select this. We're going to create a Docker Compose file. I already have a Docker Compose file here, so I'm going to paste it here, and then we're going to take a look at it. So I'm not going to start it. I'm going to say done. Go into the project, go into the YAML configuration, and this is what we need. So basically it says we're going to set up one service named Subsonic. We're going to be using that image that I mentioned. It's Danisla/Subsonic and the latest tag. We're going to name this container Subsonic, and we're going to pass, as usual, our time zone. In my case, that's America, New York. I'm going to pass the user ID that I want it to run as. So I'm going to use the default administrator of my Synology, which is 1026, and the group for that user, which is 100. If you don't know that, you need to SSH into the NAS, ask the user that you want it to run, and then run the ID command, and that'll give you those values. Then for the volumes, we're going to mount the folders that we created. So Docker container Subsonic, so that's this one. And then inside that we have config, and we're going to mount that into the opt/app/state, because that's where this specific image stores the configuration. And then we're going to mount the music directory that we have in our HTTPC directory to the /music, and our podcasts into /podcast in the container. And this container by default listens on port 4040, so we're going to expose that on the NAS on port 8000. You can pick whichever port you want that is currently not being used. In my case, I'm going to use 8000 for this case because I don't have anything else running in the lab. And you can specify any resource limits. For example, not use more than 1 gig of RAM. And we want to have this container restart unless we manually go and stop it ourselves. So that's all that we need in this Docker compose file. So we can basically save this and build it, and then it's going to pull our image. It's going to then create all the necessary things for the container to spin up, and then we'll be able to get access to the user interface of this application. So let's wait a little bit until this is done, and once this is done, then we're going to be coming back. Alright, it says exit code 0. We got the notification here, so looks like it was created properly. We can go here into the containers, select Subsonic, and then log, and we can see that it's doing stuff here. So we can see that Subsonic is running, so it should be accessible now on the IP of the NAS and then port 8000. And we can come here, and then in the config we should see stuff created. So everything is looking good here. So let's go into the IP of our NAS, port 8000, and then this is the user interface of Subsonic. The default username and password is admin. So let's make sure that we put that in there. We say login, and then we get into the user interface, which you can see is very similar to the one under demo. And the first thing it tells us, to get started, there's a few things that they recommend. So change the administrator password. If you click here, it's going to take you there where you select the admin password. You can click change here and then change it to something else. And if we go back, we can set up the media folders. So by default, it's going to start with the music being in mount music, but we need to change this because we decided to pass it as /music in the container. So I'm going to change that and say save. And if we go back also, we should see that it allows us to configure network settings. I'm not going to do this because honestly for this it's going to be retired and they want you to pay to have this, but fortunately for us we can still expose this without having to pay with our Synology NAS, so ignore that. So I would say that right now I don't have any content, so it's going to keep on telling me that. But if we go into the settings, we've already configured the music. We can add more stuff if we have them. So you can very well use this for audiobooks or any other type of audio media. So you can just keep on adding stuff here. And then for general, we have other options here about what are music files, what are video files, and all that. I'm not gonna go over the settings because this is up to you. I'm just gonna cover the critical ones that you need. But for example, here you have information that you can put on the welcome page and stuff, so that's pretty nice. And then the advanced options, you can set up a limit on bandwidth for uploads and downloads and stuff. So for personal here, you can change settings here that are for your account, and you can change your avatar and all that stuff. You can upload your own avatar if you want, so that's nice. If we go into the users, you can create other users here. And then you can share your instance with other people because you create a user for them, and then they'll log in using that user, so then they can track their own consumption of the media separate from you and all that. So it's really nice. It allows you to share with other people. And then players, this is for configuring how you want stuff to play. For me, the web player is nice, it's fine, it's perfect. because it allows you to play on the web player like we saw on the demo. Network, like I said, you can basically ignore this. You don't have to pay for Subsonic Premium because you can expose this yourself without problems. Shared media is another thing that is going to become Subsonic Premium, so you can probably just ignore this. Here's where you get information about how to put your license for the Subsonic Premium. Here you can set up a DLNA server if you want. If you want to connect to Sonos, you can set that up here. For the transcoding, you can set it up here, so it'll use FFmpeg to transcode stuff if you want. Internet radio, this is important. If you want to use the internet radio stuff, then you have to create entries for each one of those internet radio stations. So you come here, you put the name, the URL of the stream, and the homepage stuff, and then save it, and then that'll be showing up in the internet radio section. And for podcasts, basically you can say in here again, we need to change it to podcast. Let me see, podcast or podcasts? Yeah, podcasts. So lowercase podcasts is what we would put here. And then, how long you want to keep your podcasts, when to download them and all that stuff. So that's what you get here. And apparently you can also watch videos here. I didn't set it up, but if you want, you can just create another entry here in the configuration where you pass a video folder and then you can mount it here to use that. But basically those are like the main settings that I think you should set up. And then you just have your application here. I don't have any files in the lab, so that's why you don't see anything, but it would look like this if you do have stuff. So you have your files that you have there. If you have any playlists that show up here, you can create your own playlists here. So you go here and then you can create a new one. It's really nice. If you have any podcasts here, you can subscribe by putting them here and adding it, and then they'll show up in your server. So if you click there, for example, this is an example for the discovery. They have some files here, so that's really nice. It's mainly, as I can see, is for audio stuff, a little bit of video, but it's pretty straightforward. And the good thing is that you have a web user interface that you can use to share it. So I'm going to cover on this one how you can expose this. So right now we're using an HTTP. We're not using HTTPS. But if you expose your NAS to through your router to the public internet, then you can request a SSL certificate from Let's Encrypt, and then you can share this very nicely to the outside world. Alright, so to access this application from the public internet, so from outside our home, first thing we need to do is we need to go into our router. This is going to be an example because there's so many different routers out there that it's going to vary a lot. But in my case, I have a Verizon router, right? So for this case, you're going to go into your router, you're going to log into the portal. Once you log into the application, you're going to go into the firewall section, and then in the firewall section, you go into port forwarding. And then you get to this section here. I have already configured it, so you should see here that I have my virtual NAS IP, and I'm exposing port 8080 on both TCP and UDP. So in order to add this entry here, you basically go here, you say custom port, select both, and then 8080, and then you select the IP from the list here, or you can specify it here. So, in my case, I selected my virtual NAS. And then you say add, it's going to add it, and then you scroll to the very bottom, and then you click on apply. And that's how you expose that port from the outside of your home into a machine inside your local network. So that's the first step that we have to complete. Then we're going to go into the NAS. And the other thing that we need to do is we need to go into the control panel. So we click here. We're going to go into where it says login portal. And in here, we're going to go into the advanced section. In here, you will click where it says reverse proxy. I already have something, so that's why I came up with this. But if you don't have anything, it's just going to be a big button here that says create an entry. And this entry that you're going to be creating here is going to be Subsonic. And then you're going to say, I'm going to get an HTTPS request, so a secure request. And then you have to specify either a domain that you own or a subdomain that you own. I have this subdomain that I got for free from Change IP. And I'm going to put a subdomain in my subdomain that is Subsonic. So Subsonic and the rest of my subdomain from Change IP. And I'm going to say that I'm going to get all my traffic on port 8080. It's going to be secure, but it's going to be on port 8080. And then I am going to go down here And this is where I'm gonna specify where I'm gonna push that traffic to. So we know that the application is not using HTTPS, so I'm gonna leave it at the HTTP. We know that this is inside the NAS, so the traffic is already coming into the NAS, so I'm gonna pass it to the same machine, to the NAS, so localhost, and then we know that the application is listening on port 8000. So I'm gonna pass the traffic that comes on 8080 into 8000. And then that's gonna be all that we have to do here. So we should be able to then save this, and then we'll get that entry that I have here. So now the traffic can come from the outside. Our router is gonna give it to our NAS, and our NAS is gonna pass it to the container. But remember, we're trying to set up a secure connection here, HTTPS, and we don't have a certificate. So what's going to happen? We're going to get a warning message. So if we go into the URL, so it should be something like this, Subsonic, the subdomain, and then port 8080, but it starts with HTTPS. We'll get the website, but we'll see something that says not secure because it's using the another certificate. So in this case, I have it cached. So even though you say, even though you see that it is the right domain, it is using a cached one. So that's why I see that message. So in order to fix that, I'll show you how to do that, and then I'll go into an incognito window so that then we can actually see the result of it. So then we go into our NAS, and then in the NAS, we're gonna go into security, and then in security, we're gonna go into certificate. And I already requested it, as you can see here. So I specified the domain, so it's subsonic dot, and then my subdomain from change IP, and you need to create a certificate because by default it's going to give you the Synology one. So if you click, for example, here on Synology settings, you'll see that the Synology is assigned by default to all the applications. So in this case, I've already fixed it. So I created my own certificate and I assigned it here. So how do you get this certificate? We already have it exposed. So we need to click add. Then we say we need to add a new certificate. We click on next, and then we put a name here. So it could be Subsonic. And then we say get a certificate from Let's Encrypt, and then you click next, and then here you have to put the domain that you want to serve. So for example, Subsonic dot, and then your domain or subdomain, and then your email, and then you put that again back here, and then you click done, and then it's going to request that from Let's Encrypt. And if it is successful, which it should be because we already have it exposed, we should get a certificate here that is valid. So then this certificate, we can touch it. So we highlight it, we click on settings, and we make sure that the proxy entry that we created before is pointing to that certificate, because by default it's going to look like this. So you need to make sure that you're assigning that new certificate to this URL that you have here, and you click OK. And then when you do that, then when you go into the website, let's do it again, but with a private window. We're going to put our domain, and then we are going to go here, and then you see that it doesn't complain about the certificate. And if you go here, it says that the certificate is valid and is the one that we requested that comes from Let's Encrypt. So that's how you would make this application available to the public internet, so that, for example, let's say you're driving and you want to listen to your music that you have on the server, you can just point your browser on your cell phone into this URL, and then you can press play on your browser and listen to the music wherever you go. So that's how you expose the application. The application is already working, so everything is good. So you should be able to use this application now. Make sure to add content into the folders that we have mounted. So you have music, and add any live streaming that you need, or podcasts and all that, and then it's just a matter of consuming whatever media you get. So I hope you found this video useful. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so you get that notification, hit that bell so you are notified whenever I upload something that is released on YouTube. And I'm not monetizing the channel, that is on purpose. So you should have noticed that there was no ad on my video, but that also means that I get zero money or any benefit at all from spending the effort on creating all of these videos. So that's why it is very important, if you like the content and you want to support me, to use the link in the description below to donate using PayPal, like the donor that requested this video did. And I always prioritize the requests from donors. So I'm gonna jump you to the front of the queue, and as long as I don't have any issues with setting up your application, it's gonna be pretty fast that you're gonna see that video released. And if there's some issues that I have where I can't get it to work properly, or I just don't think that it's a good fit for the channel, or for example, it's a paid application that I need to basically pay to use it, I might not do a video on that, or I just do a generic video on the, what it is for and stuff. But yeah, I'm trying to focus because, like I said, I'm not making any money. If it is anything that requires a membership or anything like that, I'm probably not going to do a video on that unless I'm making money somehow. So yeah, that's going to be it for this one. I hope you liked it. I'll see you in the next video.